Hey, good morning. My name is Matt Fleming. I'm an outside field rep at Producers Cooperative Association, and we've got our first webinar session of our Everything Ag Expo. Got a lot of stuff going on at the store today and throughout the week, so really invite y'all to join us. I'm really excited to introduce Dr. Lenine with Elonco. She's their nutritionist, and she's going to talk to y'all this morning about cow-calf nutrition.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for joining me here today to talk about cow-calf nutrition and some of our feeding resources for helping you along in feeding productive beef cows. When we talk about cow-calf nutrition from a nutritionist standpoint, we categorize her into different categories based on her biological status at that time. So we expect each producing beef cow to produce one calf per year. And so she's going to go through a time in which she has high nutrient demand and low nutrient demand, and we have to feed her accordingly. So for example, a cow that is in late gestation, 60 to 90 days pre-calving, and a cow that just calves, so is in peak lactation, is going to have a higher requirement of nutrients that she needs to take in to support all of the demands we're asking her to do, compared to a cow that is going to be heading towards weaning. She's not going to be lactating as much in larger quantity or quality at that point. And then once she weans that calf, she'll be in early to mid-late gestation. And so that's a time period where she needs to take in less nutrients to support her system. And what I mean by supporting her system is supporting everything from maintenance to locomotion to an immune response to fetal growth to lactation requirements, and then being able to be in a position to be rebred for success reproductively down the line. And so we need to feed cows accordingly during different times in her physiological life. So there's times when we expect that nutritional requirement and feeding to be low, such as in the summer, especially with the spring calving cow when she's out grazing and getting her own nutrition. And then there's times when we expect it to be higher, such as right now, specifically with fall calving cows when they are in the process of calving, or even spring calving cows that will calve early in the spring as they head towards late gestation. And so feeding these cows more can be something as simple as offering a protein supplement during those times of high nutrient requirements, or it can be something as simple as a mineral supplement during those low nutrient requirements, or a combination of the two. Now, I'm talking to you about this today because I want to point out some of the impacts of what happens when we don't feed cows enough during certain points of her reproductive cycle, such as right around calving. And the graph that you're seeing on the screen is a summary of multiple studies that looked at what happens when we underfeed cows, either energy or protein, either prepartum or postpartum. So prepartum would mean a time when the cow is leading up to calving, and postpartum would be post-calving after she has had the calf. And the outcome that we're measuring on this table is pregnancy rate in a percentage, which is on the vertical axis or the y-axis there on the left side of the screen. So when cows are eating enough nutrients, they're going to be summarized in the black bars. And when cows were underfed, they're summarized in the blue bars. You'll notice that regardless of whether it was energy or protein that was deficient, either pre or post calving, the blue bar is below the black bar. This means that cows that were underfed nutrients in this critical time period sacrificed pregnancy rate. So an average of about 10% reduction in pregnancy rate when we underfed cows during this time period. That's 10 calves in a 100 cow herd right off the bat that we wouldn't have access to sellable wean weight from simply by not feeding cows enough. So a lot of times in cow-calf production scenarios, we don't necessarily measure the outcomes associated with underfeeding, and this is one of the primary ones. And so we can alleviate this by providing more nutrients to the cow during specific times of her productive cycle. Body condition score is a measurement of nutrient reserves, and it's still the best indicator when taken at calving of her future reproductive success. So that body condition score is going to indicate what condition she's calving in, which is going to closely tie into if she is able to get rebred and conceive a calf for her next reproductive cycle. Now remember that body condition score at calving is going to be retroactive. So we need to be able to correct body condition score well before calving nutritionally to impact that body condition score at calving. So that's kind of a post hoc measurement of something that we need to actually correct earlier in her reproductive lifespan. So in summary, we can feed our way out of some of these challenges that may affect pregnancy rate. And one of the tools that we have available at our fingertips is Rumensin, specifically for the cow herd. Rumensin you may be familiar with for confinement cattle feeding. We see it used largely in feed yard, stocker cattle, backgrounding cattle, but it is labeled for the use in the beef production herd for reproducing animals. And I want to touch on a few of the benefits of using Rumensin with reproducing animals today. Rumensin is what we classify as an ionophore. An ionophore is an antimicrobial that has its action in the rumen in modifying some of the rumen population in comparison to an antibiotic, which might be an injectable that produces an antigen in response, an antibody in response to an antigen. So a little bit different there when we compare the two. Rumensin is an ionophore that is deemed not medically important by the FDA because of its animal-only use. So Rumensin cannot be used in any human medicine. Therefore, there's no concern with resistance or an impact on human health. And as a result, it does not require a veterinary feed directive or a VFD to feed, which makes it very flexible and easy to put into your cattle feed. Rumensin is derived from a fermentation process that is taking place in our plant in Clinton, Indiana. It's been made in that plant for about 40 years. And it's a process that we can easily take you to and walk you through if you wish. So it's something that we make very transparent in how we make this product. Rumensin has a feed additive advantage in that it improves efficiency, and that can be measured in average daily gain in stocker calves or feed efficiency more on the beef cow level or in feed yard animals. Rumensin, as I mentioned, is an ionophore. And so its mode of action, or where it's doing its work, is in the rumen. The animal is going to consume Rumensin, and it's basically going to shift the microorganism populations in the rumen to favor those in which are more efficient at converting feedstuffs to usable energy. And this is important because I kind of think of those microbes in the rumen as little Pac-Men. They have a job to do. They're buzzing around in different families. They like different feedstuffs. They like different rumen environments. And so we have this family of microorganisms that changes its dynamic when Rumensin is fed into an environment that is able to more efficiently produce energy for the animal. And that's where we get a lot of the excellent outcomes when feeding Rumensin. And these outcomes can stem all the way from coccidiosis control to an improvement in feed efficiency to an improvement in average daily gain for growing cattle. Rumensin is a coccidiostat. It's one of many coccidiostats on the market, but it's the most potent and the most effective on the market today. It has 3 stages in which it kills coccidia, and it does kill coccidia, not simply impair it, at 2 points in the small intestine and 1 in the large intestine prior to that coccidia becoming clinical. Really, Rumensin's action on coccidia starts in the rumen when it excludes some of the coccidia populations in that shift of the little Pac-Man microbes in that rumen, and then it has downstream effects in the hindgut through the small intestine and the large intestine to control for coccidiosis. Rumensin is one of the most effective means of controlling for coccidiosis on the market today, and it's widely used in many beef populations, ranging from cow-calf as a means of controlling the environment to provide a cleaner environment in which that calf is going to be exposed on the ground, all the way to controlling coccidiosis in growing cattle and feed yard animals. Now I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Rumensin and its effects in actual reproducing animals, starting with replacement heifers. What can we expect if we feed Rumensin? Rumensin can be provided in free choice mineral for self-selection to replacement heifers. It can be provided in block in TMRs, and actual feeds. So there's a lot of flexibility of how replacement heifers can receive Rumensin. In this table, this is a summary of multiple studies where we fed Rumensin at a dose of 0, so they did not receive any, and we compared that to a group of replacement heifers receiving 150 milligrams per head per day. And you'll notice in the average daily gain column over there to the right, that Rumensin improved average daily gain of replacement heifers by 0.14 pounds per head per day. Now, this is a common response to Rumensin in growing cattle. Across the board in stocker cattle, it tends to improve the average daily gain by 0.14 to 0.2 pounds per head per day. That translates to 20 extra pounds over a 100-day grazing season. That's 20 extra pounds of sellable weight that is very easy to obtain through this low-cost ingredient. Now, for replacement heifers, obviously we want to tie that back to a reproductive benefit, since she is going to be the future of that reproducing herd. That improvement in average daily gain translated to an improvement in average days to first estrus. What does that mean? That means that heifers that received Rumensin reached their first heat sooner. Okay, 139 days versus 152 days, about 13 days sooner. That means she's breed eligible sooner, which means that she potentially will get bred sooner and calve earlier in the calving period. Research shows that heifers that calve earlier in the calving period and have a positive overall calving event on their first calf will do that more frequently in future calves. So what she does on that first calving is indicative of what she'll do over a lifetime. So Rumensin is one tool that we can couple with good nutrition and management to help improve her overall reproductive success and her returning the value on herself quicker for producers. So take-home messages for Rumensin and replacement heifers is they'll reach estrus sooner, so she can be breed eligible sooner, and then it's still preventing and controlling coccidiosis in that growing heifer. Now let's move into a reproducing mature beef cow. We can feed reproducing cows up to 200 milligrams per head per day of Rumensin. This table that you're seeing shows a summary of multiple studies that fed cows at a level of no Rumensin, 50 milligram per head per day, or 200 milligram per head per day. And the unique characteristic about these studies is they also did this with feed restriction. So cows that received 50 milligrams per head per day of Rumensin also received 5% less feed than a full feeding regimen. Cows that received 200 milligrams per head per day of Rumensin received 10% less feed than a full feeding regimen. In this study, the cows that received 200 milligrams per head per day of Rumensin numerically lost the least amount of weight across the calving period than cows receiving none or 50 milligrams per head per day. So it was evident through this research that Rumensin, by having that energetic efficiency advantage, was able to maintain cows on 10% less feed, and they lost the least amount of body weight. So the take-home message there is that Rumensin will allow cows to maintain body weight on 5 to 10% less feed. This is a feed efficiency advantage. Here comes the tricky part. How do you measure feed efficiency in a cow-calf herd? That's difficult to do, right? And so some of the translation of what that means is that can mean putting out less harvested forage. So if my cows eat 25 pounds of forage a day, I can put out 2.5 pounds of less hay for those cows on a daily basis. This could mean that those cows actually graze or consume a little bit less, so I can carry over more forage. Or even this could mean I might be able to put another cow out in the pasture. So however that translates to you, that's a feed cost savings. If I save 2.5 pounds over a 100-day grazing period in the winter, I save 250 pounds per cow. That's a lot of forage that I can retain or use for something else. Okay, so that's how that would translate in a grazing scenario. And then don't forget, we're still preventing and controlling coccidiosis to provide that cleaner environment for the calf at calving. One of the ways that we can help to bring the blue bar up to the black bar, to reference the first graph that we looked at today, was by supplementing nutrients to beef cows. So certain times of the year around calving, she's probably going to need more nutrients than what the forage can provide. And a supplementation program is a great way to close that gap. This can be something as simple as a protein supplement in the form of a cube, such as what you can buy at Producers, with Rumensin in it. This graph is showing the value of supplementing nutrients when Rumensin is present and when Rumensin is not. So the gray bars on this graph are showing when cows were not consuming Rumensin in their supplement, and the orange bars are showing when Rumensin was present in the supplement. And then along the x-axis, or the horizontal axis, we see the hay and supplement cost per ton and the total feeding costs along the vertical axis. When Rumensin is present in very inexpensive feeding situations during the winter for a 112-day feeding period, it saved producers about $12 per cow. This is based off a value of harvested forage. And then when feed gets more expensive, it saved producers about $26 per cow for this 112-day feeding period. So the bottom line here is that when forage and hay and supplement cost is inexpensive, there's still a value to Rumensin that offers an excellent return on investment. And then like any product that improves feed efficiency, it becomes more valuable as feed prices increase. And so as we see the feed price go up for supplementing cows, the value of Rumensin gets stronger and stronger. Okay, so this is a product that is relatively inexpensive to feed, and it offers a great return on investment based on that feed efficiency advantage alone in cows. This is not valuing the coccidiosis advantage in cows, which is kind of icing on the cake. Now, one question that we get a lot with any product that we're going to feed a reproducing animal is, what does it do to the measurements of reproductive success? So is it going to harm conception rate at all? And this is something that we addressed early in the research of Rumensin and found that it was reproductively safe. But I wanted to show a more recent study than what was done in the 1980s by using this University of Arkansas study that you're seeing in the table here on the screen. And this is where they fed cows either no Rumensin or 200 milligrams per head per day. They had 12 different pastures of cows, and they looked specifically at postpartum interval and conception rate and found that Rumensin significantly improved conception rate and significantly reduced postpartum interval. So if Rumensin has the ability to provide an energy benefit to the cow, it keeps her in better body condition, and that results in a shortening of postpartum interval, which is the time in which she weans, time in which it takes to get that cow rebred. And then we also saw the advantage in conception rate here on the screen. So it is in fact a reproductively safe feeding tool for a reproducing beef herd. Rumensin can be found at Producers Co-op in their Stalker Pro Feedlot and Breeder Cube products. We would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have today or any follow-up questions on behalf of Elanco, but feel free to also ask those questions to producers and we can all have a discussion. The next thing I'd like to touch on is part 2 of technology that's available for cow-calf producers. Part 1 being an ionophore in the form of Rumensin, part 2 being implants. Implants are a low dose of hormone that is provided to an animal. It has been shown to be very safe. It has been shown not to have an effect on human health. And it has been shown to have the single best return on investment of any technology that we have our fingertips to today, especially in the grazing cattle sector. Implants are additive over the life of a calf, meaning that if a cow-calf producer implants a calf, they will find value specifically to their operation. If they sell at weaning and those calves get implanted in the stalker phase, there's going to be value in the stalker phase, and so on and so forth. And we'll look at a quantification of that value on the next slide. The implants that are available for calves from Elanco are the Component EC line of implants. You'll notice down there it says with Tylan. We do include a Tylan pellet alongside the hormone pellet in the implant. as a means of insurance policy for protecting that implant site against abscess or health challenges. Anytime we have an open injection in the skin, we put that area at risk for abscesses or becoming infected, and Tylan's a nice insurance policy against those challenges, which can deem the implant inusable. And so in general, then that implant was provided and the producer is not getting use out of it, so we want to avoid that. Implanting with component EC can improve suckling steer performance by about 0.11 pounds per head per day, our research has found. So this could translate to 10 extra pounds plus over a 100-day period. Obviously, 150 days is going to be more pounds. So a little bit of labor on one day, a little bit of upfront cost, and you can capture more pounds of sellable wean weight using an implant program. Now, the implant guns are this blue one that we use for the component with Tylan EC implant guns. They do come in packs of 20 that are sold. Right now, if you buy 100 doses of Virus Shield at Producers, you'll get a free pack of 20 implants. If implanting is not your thing, it's not something you're comfortable with, haven't done in a long time, Elonco does offer how-to on implanting. We offer support in that area to show producers how to do it. We also offer support in making sure that's implanted correctly by doing ear checks, if that's feasible. And we have a lot of tools to help producers along with implant programs. So really don't hesitate to ask, as we feel it's a great technology at the fingertips of producers that's not used as widely as potentially it should be, given the ROI that we see on implanting calves. Now, the final table I'm going to show is exactly what I mentioned on the last slide, which is lifetime implanting performance benefits. So this is a well-referenced study that was published looking at implants regardless of brand and what was the overall average response per each segment in the cattle industry. This is really important because of our segmentation of the cattle industry and how cattle are sold and moved, that we're able to reach value based on a technology, based on an investment to each segment that's provided in. And so we can see here in suckling steer calves, it increases live weight by about 18 pounds, stockers 33 pounds, feedlot steers 75 pounds, for a total of about 130 of extra pounds over the lifetime of the animal. Of course, this is going to depend on implant program, nutritional status, and management techniques. But in general, the ROI on a very low-cost, one-time event in suckling calves is phenomenal for this technology. So we definitely encourage, if there's any questions about implanting, if we can help you through that at all, we would be happy to do it. Elonco component with Tylan EC implants for calves can be found at Producers, as well as TEG, which would be more for grazing cattle after they are weaned. And you'll see some pictures of the box there on the screen so you know what you're looking for. And with that, I will say thank you, producers, for having Elonco here today and the opportunity to talk to you about cow nutrition and see if there's any questions. No questions today. So with that, I think